The following review is intended for entertainment purposes and targeted for adult fans of the series.
They're not using the bikes this time. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. Does it? Hello there, heroes! I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode review. I know at the start of some of these videos I can tend to get a bit rambly, and it just makes things even longer. So I'm going to address really quickly two things that I know you've already noticed. Number one, I have managed to add a second monitor to the ORV HQ tech situation. Number two, Chomsky finally found some time in his maintenance schedule to give me a haircut. On with the show. I tend not to try to spoil things before they are revealed in the episode in these reviews, but I can give you hints, and I can give you warnings. I'm warning you now, this episode has an incredibly sad ending. It's gonna hurt, and it's gonna be feels real bad, man. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 19th episode of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, Semper Fi. And if you know what that phrase means, you may already know where we're going.
Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel.
Yeah, and make sure you got your notifications set up by hitting that little bell icon.
Right you. What he said was, you can consider checking us out on Patreon or Ko-fi at Orange Ranger Videos.
One comment that I can make about the recap this time is that even it seems to be hinting at what's to come, using a sad kind of repetitive guitar line instead of the usual very energetic music. So we start with Chris, and as it turns out, he wasn't writing a letter to his dad, but journaling, except maybe he was writing a letter to his dad. Over the next couple of episodes, it's going to become really unclear what he was actually writing. I thought it was a letter to his dad because last time we saw him write a few words and then crumple it up and start over. And while you can do that while you're journaling, it just seems to me like you just kind of cross out the line or just, explain into the journal what you're writing. But anyway, JTC walks up. Chris is not cautious at first because he's never actually seen Kamen Rider strike untransformed, but when JTC flashes that purple snake deck, obviously things change. However, JTC is not actually here to fight, but to make an offer. He immediately starts blowing smoke up Chris's butt. You see, apparently he told Xaviax that he shouldn't have tried to fool Chris. Chris is military. He doesn't deserve that. He deserves to know what this war is really about. Oh, and the advanced medical technology Xaviax supposedly has. Oh, right. You see, Xaviax's race are apparently far more biologically complex than humans, so they find humans far easier to heal. Surely Xaviax's medical technology could cure Chris's asthma. But what's the catch? Well, for this war to go anywhere, Wing Knight is just gonna have to be dealt with. JTC proposes the classic Xaviax tactic. Get in close, get buddy-buddy with him, let him turn his back, and pull that final vent card. Chris says that would be selling out Ventara, but James says that world is not his world. Those people are not his people. All you have to do is vent Wing Knight, and you can be a United States Marine again. Chris's response is a question. If James knows what Semper Fidelis means. He says he does, but Chris has to explain it to the audience anyway. It means always faithful. It's the Latin slogan of the United States Marine Corps. Well, let Chris put it another way. He stands up and transforms into Sting. America, fuck yeah! So you may have noticed in the last video and just now that I've started using cutaway gags with some more adult language in them. Listen, these videos are marked as not for kids. I do these reviews primarily for adults, even if there are kids watching. There's a disclaimer at the start of every video. These videos are made for an adult audience. And even family-friendly reviewers, like Linkara, use cutaway gags that have cuss words in them. I'm just loosening up on that a bit when it fits in moments like these. It's not going to be every other gag. It's just going to be when it feels right. James sighs, his gambit having failed, and transforms. And it's not really much of a fight, to be honest. Sting's asthma kicks in, and Strike starts kicking him around. He says time's up, the offer's off the table, and pulls his final vent card. But Sting pulls his attack vent card, summoning his Stingray beast and flying away on it.
Run away! Run away! Run away! Run away!
In Gramercy Park, we get a good scene with Lacey. I mean, it's a quick scene, but I didn't hate her in it. She calls Maya... Okay, well, actually, she calls the bookstore, and there's really only one reason that she would call the bookstore and not Maya's cell phone. It's because Maya's cell phone would display to her who was calling, and we need Maya not to know who's trying to call her. Though I would imagine that in that year, the bookstore would at least have a digital phone that would still have a readout of who's calling. But maybe the bookstore phone doesn't have Maya's number stored in it. Though, of course, I would imagine that Maya would store Lacey's number. For Zordon's sake, I told y'all I can ramble. Maya picks up, but as that whole who's calling Maya thing hinted at, Lacey doesn't say anything. She hangs up, muttering to herself that this is a conversation they have to have in person. At the bookstore, Trent and Maya talk about Maya being frustrated that she can't make Lacey understand. She didn't know that Lacey was calling. This just happens to be the topic of conversation. Trent suggests that Kit could transform into Dragon Knight in front of Maya, but Maya says transforming is not something that the Kamen Riders do just for fun. It is something that they do for practice, though. And again, from last time, if Kit wanted Chris to tell his dad that he's a Kamen Rider, the only way that he could prove that is by transforming. Lacey arrives at the bookstore, taking a moment to collect herself and her feelings, when Len walks past her and into the bookstore. Remember, Len is one of those weird guys that Lacey basically slut-shamed Maya over hanging out with. Len asks Maya if she's heard from JTC. She says that JTC told her that he was attacked by the monsters, but Len says, attacked by? Or helped? What are you talking about? All right, heroes. This time, I went back and checked. I skimmed through the last few minutes of episode 17, where they had that fight after trying to meet JTC, and none of the writers, including Len, mentions that they suspect that JTC is helping Zabiax. None of them. Len is pulling this directly out of his bat butt. Then Kit walks in, to Lacey's further irritation, to my further delight. He tells everyone about his dad being gone and Strike having taken him. Then Chris walks in. Sadly, we don't see Lacey's reaction to this, just Chris telling everyone about how Strike attacked him and he barely escaped, and he realizes that he's running out of time. He tells them that if there's a final plan to take down Zabiax, they maybe need to do it now. Len says that is a no-go. Zabiax and Strike would be tough enough on their own. Now, with Axe and Spear... Oh yeah, by the way, there's two new riders, Axe and Spear. It would be impossible to take them all down at once. We go back out to Lacey, who looks at someone else, or a pair of someone else's, walking into the bookstore, confused because she doesn't recognize these guys. That's because it's Danny and Albert.
Danny and Arnold. Love those two guys.
No, Danny and... You know what, forget it. They come in looking for a fight. Kit asks where his father is, and honestly, they have a really great comeback to this. Oh, you lost your father? That seems awfully irresponsible of you. Maya tells them that they need to go. They cannot do this here. And Kit agrees. They're going to need a little more room. And with Lacey looking directly in through the bookstore window, Kit, Len, and Chris walk directly through the front door and into Ventara. Though actually it looks like Len, who went first, walked into the window that Lacey was standing right in front of. She flinches back and guards herself like he's coming towards her. Except that we clearly see in other shots that that window is not a full-length vertical window. So he would have had to, jump into it. Oops, Everyone emerges into Ventara transformed. We usually have only seen that happen when they ride the bikes, but they didn't take the bikes this time. Whatever, it's not really an important detail. Dragon Knight goes the same direction after Axe and Spear, and that's exactly why he's attacked by a big Minotaur monster. Literally 1 minute later, Dragon Knight literally says that he doesn't have time for this and final vents the monster. I think the only reason that it was included in the first place is that he's attacked by Spear right after this. Quickly, Spear's suit is a little bit different. Not just the brown color, the horns, the fur accents, but the brown color on the suit itself looks slightly fuzzy, almost like felt. Actually gives him kind of a unique look. Dragon Knight gets the upper hand on Spear, but nobody messes with Axe's brother, who attacks. Almost messed that up. They beat up on Dragon Knight a little, specifically mentioning that Strike told them to only keep Dragon Knight out of the fight, not to hurt him and not to vent him. Dragon Knight knocks Spear off of a bridge and onto a hill, so Axe knocks him into some completely different footage. Wing Knight and Sting show up, and Kamen Rider Axe is just freaking cool. His card slot is hidden at the top of his axe, revealed by pulling down and activating the card by pushing back up, and his strike vent is huge, metallic, sharp-clawed tiger paws. W-I-C-K-E-D. Axe pushes the two of them around. Dragon Knight sees this and comes over to help, drawing his sword and drawing Axe away. The other two riders run after to help, but Spear cuts them off, taking them on. Dragon Knight actually knocks Axe out by blasting him up against a wall. He looks at Kamen Rider Axe and pulls his final vent card. He stares at the fallen rider and can't make himself do it, putting the card back and walking away. And then we see Kamen Rider Axe wake up. Boy, I really hope that Kit doesn't come to regret this decision in the immediate future. Sting uses his own change footage punch to knock Spear into a city. Wing Knight tells Sting that he should go, he's sounding pretty rough, but Sting refuses to leave. Kamen Rider Spear's card slot is on his knee, which makes it look like not even a card slot, just a knee pad that he shoves cards into. And his attack vent summons 6 mirror monsters for some reason. I'm not even sure this would make sense in Ryuki, though I'm sure somebody will tell me otherwise. The beasts are literally jumping Sting, 3 of them standing around him on the ground and just kicking and punching him as he's coughing, but still refusing to leave. Another 2 hold back Wing Knight for a moment, but he manages to get free and attack them. Spear takes a moment to catch his breath, and then all 6 of the mirror monsters disappear. Now, you might be wondering why all 6 of the mirror monsters just disappeared. Sting runs over to help Wing Knight, but is shoved away by Spear, directly into Strike, whose staff zaps him somehow. The pace of the fight starts to slow down, hinting at an important moment approaching. Dragon Knight finds them, but is intercepted by Axe, who stops him from running over to help. Wing Knight is basically pinned down by Spear. Strike zapped Sting. And if you want a little peek into the challenge of writing these reviews, I just mentioned the name of 3 writers whose names start with S in 4 words. Spear, Strike, zapped, Sting. Strike steps forward, telling Wing Knight it's the end of the road and pulling his final vent card. Sting urges himself to get up as Strike activates the card. Dragon Knight is held back by Axe and can only scream, "No!" He does finally knock Axe down and tries to run over, but he's too far away. Strike kicks towards Wing Knight, empowered by the poison of his snake, and Chris Ramirez steps in front of Wing Knight, bearing his chest and taking the full brunt of the attack. Strike's reaction to this? Oh. And he leaves. The other 2 fight off Axe and Spear, but honestly, the 2 of them seem to realize what just happened and decide it's best for them to go. Sting gets up, looking at his hands and asking what's happening to him.
I don't feel so good.
Wing Knight can only whisper, "No," as Dragon Knight runs towards Sting. Realizing his fate now, Chris stands proud and tall, with a fist across his chest, saying, "Semper Fi," as he's sent to the Advent Void.
Oh, don't cry, are you?
By the gods, I said that Axe and Spear realized the moment and decided to leave, but that's actually what happened. They just run around the corner at first, they see this happen and say, "We should go," heading back to Earth. Dragon Knight drops to his knees, powering down and picking up Sting's deck, which dropped when he was vented. They drop a thread of hope for the audience that I really wish they hadn't. Kit saying, "We have to bring him back," and Len saying, "We'll find a way, I promise." Fade to black and fade back up on a faded memory. The 3 riders promising to protect Ventara and Earth. Let's read the cards. Episode 19, Semper Fi. Pros, emotion, pathos, loss.
So I'm just gonna gush right now, okay? I'm just gonna gush.
Cons, sometimes the big moments were too telegraphed, and the bookstore scene felt a touch contrived. Okay, let me just make a little note right here for me to remember in the future. Okay, Dragon Knight crosses from good to amazing at episode 19. There we go. Semper Fi gets 5 cards out of 5. So, this episode ends with Pink Stingray Man taking a kick from Purple Snake Man to protect Black Bat Guy. And Red Dragon Dude wanted to run over and help, but White Tiger Dude wouldn't let him. And they were all using decks of tarot cards to activate their special moves. So somebody tell me why I'm almost crying. It's the writing. This show, I docked episode 18 for being all set up and leaving it to this episode for the payoff, but dang, if this was the payoff, then that loss of points was absolutely worth it. Power Rangers usually needs a finale to make the audience feel this kind of gravitas, and this show accomplished it in episode 19. Semper Fi, indeed. Like I said, I don't have specific pros for this episode. I'm just gonna gush. Chris doesn't have a terribly long arc. 8 episodes, 12 through 19. Okay, at this point that is almost half the show, but anyway, Like I said last time, his character is not very deep, but he's well written and consistent. His father wanted him to be a United States Marine. And so did he. He was proud of the legacy. He never once mentions wanting to do anything else. Xaviax made him become Kamen Rider Sting by promising him the chance to fight for his country and be a soldier. He eventually realized he was being tricked and changed sides, fighting not just for his country, but his planet. But the same asthma that threatened that actually did take away his dream of being a Marine threatened to take away him being a Kamen Rider and protecting his planet, giving him the sense of this ticking clock as his asthma progressed. He had a line just before he got vented that I didn't mention, saving it for right now. I'm running out of time. If I'm going to do some good, it has to be now. Nathan Hale, an American spy during the British Revolution, was quoted at his death as having said, "I only regret that I have but one life to lay down for my country." That's how Chris saw this. For the good of two worlds, Earth and Ventara, the good that he could do was to lay down his life, well, his life for now, to save Wing Knight. Vented by Strike, a jackass. And Dragon Knight and Wing Knight couldn't help because they both had a chance to stop the other riders, Dragon Knight having a chance to vent Axe, and Wing Knight having taken both of their decks away but giving them back, and they stopped them from being able to help their friend. It's so tragic and so good! My complaints are minor. Earlier in the episode, they had a moment during a fight where Sting was fighting Strike that they slowed down the pace of the fight like they did when he was vented to make the audience think that's what was happening before that was subverted, and all of the serious moments in the episode have this extra sense of gravity to them, even though it's only the one at the end that actually pays that off. And yeah, suddenly having everybody show up at the bookstore and having 7 people on a rather small set felt a little bit clownish of them, and the whole thing was contrived to get Lacey to finally see the truth about the Kamen Riders. Yeah, that's really how good this episode was. I spent 4 paragraphs discussing really the only strong point that I mentioned, and then condensed 2 cons down into a single paragraph. The rubber has hit the road. This is really where the show demonstrated why it was special and what it was capable of. The stakes are real. Heroes can die. I was invested at this point. Let's take a peek at how they followed that up as the show moves into the 20s with episode 20, Letter from the Homefront. As Kit and Len blame themselves for Chris being vented, Kit finds a letter from Chris to his father. Axe and Spear defy Xaviax to go after Dragon Knight, as Lacey is tricked into helping Michelle get the dirt on Maya. That is going to wrap up another Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode review. Thank you, heroes, so much as always for watching. Now that the review is over, you can let me know what you thought of this episode, as well as my review of it, down in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure you smack that thumbs up button to let me know that you enjoyed this video. Until next time, heroes, may the power of the cards protect you. We know all the ways to be WICKED. I try not to spoil things beforehand, and however, Maya picks up, but as that whole little ramble about who was calling Maya suggested, she doesn't say anything. All 6 of the mirror monsters disappear because Sting is zapped by Sting runs over to help Wing Knight, but is shoved away by Spear directly into Strike, whose staff before it's subverted. And yeah, this is really why where the